All right, let's get into it. Today, we're breaking down a really fascinating and frankly kind of counterintuitive theory on what actually drives romantic attraction. And just a heads up, it pretty much challenges everything you've probably been told.
So let's start with the big question, right? What is it that genuinely creates that spark, that deep, lasting attraction? Well, according to our source material, the answer is not at all what you'd think. It argues that all the stuff we usually focus on, looks, money, status, they completely miss the point. The real key is something much, much deeper. And boom, here it is, the line that just flips everything on its head. Kindness does not create love. I know, that sounds incredibly harsh, doesn't it? It kind of goes against everything we're taught. But our source claims this is one of the single biggest misunderstandings in modern dating.
And that brings us right to our first big idea, the kindness paradox. The main argument here is that using kindness and just being agreeable as a strategy to make someone fall for you isn't just ineffective, it can actually backfire.
Now, this is a super important distinction, so let's be really clear. This is not about being a jerk. The source is very specific. You should be a good person, someone with strong core values, someone who treats people with kindness and respect. The mistake is being nice as a tactic, with the specific goal of getting affection in return. See the difference? One is a core value, the other is a transaction.
And this is where you see that downward spiral happen. It starts with you giving absolutely everything, right? You're being completely accommodating. But then you notice her starting to pull away. So what's the instinct? You double down. You give even more. You try to be even nicer. And instead of pulling her closer, it just pushes her further and further away.
Okay, so if being compliant doesn't work, then what's the alternative? Well, that brings us to our next principle. The theory says that earning genuine respect is infinitely more powerful than just being agreeable or complacent.
So the source kind of adapts that famous line from Machiavelli for this context. And look, when it says feared, we're not talking about making someone actually afraid of you. Not at all. It's being used here as a synonym for being deeply respected, being seen as a person whose boundaries and decisions are solid and non-negotiable. That kind of respect, the theory argues, is a foundation for attraction, while complacency just breeds disrespect.
Okay, this next one is probably the most controversial word in this whole theory, so let's be super clear about what it means. When the source uses the word punish, or castigar, it's not about revenge or getting angry. It simply means applying a consequence that you've already decided on when a clear boundary gets crossed. It's about calm, decisive action, not some big emotional reaction.
And here's a perfect, real-world example of what that looks like. Let's say a non-negotiable boundary for you is fidelity. If that line gets crossed, the punishment, or the consequence, isn't a screaming match. It's upholding your boundary by walking away from the relationship. The key here is that your actions are what enforce your self-respect. Losing the person is better than losing your own standards.
See, it all comes down to valuing yourself, right? And that same logic applies to your most precious resources, your time and your attention. This brings us to what's called the scarcity principle. And the idea is pretty simple. Your investment in another person has to be earned. It's not something you just give away for free.
So you've got two paths you can go down. On the left, you have this unequal investment. You're putting in 100% and you're getting like 10% back. That just screams neediness. But on the right, you have a balanced investment where the effort is mutual, and that signals value.
And this right here, this is what that lopsided investment actually looks like in practice. According to this theory, it's a total recipe for failure. It basically tells the other person that your time isn't valuable and that you don't really have anything else going on. It communicates neediness, not strength.
And this is the goal, a balanced investment. If she invests, you match her investment, maybe even a little less. This creates a dynamic where she actually has to work a bit to earn your attention, which in turn makes it more valuable and, according to this theory, increases her attraction.
All right, so we've spent a lot of time on what not to do. So what's the secret sauce? What is the actual core of attraction according to this theory? Well, it argues that it has nothing to do with external things, but everything to do with your internal state of being. And here they are, the big three, the pillars that hold everything up. First, determination. You know what you want in life and what you're looking for in a partner. Second, firmness. That's the ability to stick to your decisions and your boundaries, which we just talked about. And finally, confidence. Just that deep down belief in yourself and your own value. The theory says that these three internal traits are the true engine of attraction, not anything on the outside. And if you need proof, the source actually shares this amazing personal story.
his own partner, completely out of the blue, said this exact phrase to him. Not his looks, not his money, but his confidence. That was the thing that made her fall for him. It was that internal quality that created the external attraction.
Okay, now for the final piece of the puzzle. This is a great metaphor that pulls all of these ideas together into one single archetype, the lion and the fox. This is basically the synthesis of everything we've been talking about.
The whole idea is that you have to be two things at once. You need the qualities of the lion, that raw strength, that commanding presence, the ability to protect. But that, on its own, is not enough. You have to combine it with the qualities of the fox, being smart, strategic, and having a high emotional intelligence.
First up, you embody the lion. This is your raw power, your protective instinct. It's that foundation of strength and presence that makes other people feel secure around you.
But raw power isn't enough, right? It can be reckless. That's where the fox comes in, the smart, strategic mind that knows how to guide that power with wisdom and purpose.
And when you put them together, when you merge that raw power of the lion with the smarts of the fox, that's when you get what the Source calls the extraordinary man. You're not just one or the other. You're the complete, integrated whole.
But what's the one thing that holds all of this together? What's the engine driving both the lion and the fox? The Source is crystal clear on this final point. It's purpose. It's having a mission that is bigger than you and bigger than any single relationship. A man without a purpose, it claims, is just an aimless soul, and that lack of direction is deeply unattractive.
So in the end, everything we've talked about, the confidence, the strength, all of it, is all built on the bedrock of your life's mission, which kind of leaves us with one final and maybe the most important question to think about. What's yours?